Honorable ministers, senior government officials, captains of industry, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to express my gratitude to the organizers of this year's edition of the Africa Mining Summit. I'd also like to appreciate the presence of all the honorable ministers, the business leaders, event sponsors, and other participants in this meeting. The 2020 Mining Summit is being held at a time when the African continent is involved in very concerted and structured conversation to identify strategies and mechanisms for promoting shared value and shared benefits from the mineral sector. And this is being done under the growing threat of the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has raised some gains that were achieved in some sectors, and this includes the mining sector. As economies and society face the COVID-19 challenge, companies are not spared, as their balance sheets are under stress, and sometimes extremely so. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a mining continent, is characterized by oil and gas, copper, gold, iron ore, bauxite, among other minerals. In this respect, Africa will continue to play a significant role in the global energy markets as more resources, especially oil and gas resources, are discovered. Energy will also continue to be central to the economic growth and revenues of many African countries, although the challenge is to move upstream in the value chain. It is important to note that energy and mineral value chains usually involve the generation of large quantities of residues. These residues often are defined a portion as a priori as waste in laws or regulations. They end up as waste, and if not properly managed, threaten the physical environment as well as the health and safety of local populations. With energy and the mineral production increasingly coming from lower grade sources, the quantities of residues and weights are also growing exponentially, thus compounding the problem. However, these residues are important sources of secondary resources. This means that the residues themselves can safely be used for productive purposes rather than being disposed of. In the past, there were technology challenges for the utilization of waste, but this is being addressed today through innovative approaches that are being made. The activities that produce valuable secondary raw materials help to conserve non-renewable primary resources. This actually helps to meet the target of Sustainable Development Goal number 12 on responsible production and consumption by promoting waste minimization through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. We at the African Union are in the final stage of formulating an African Union commodity strategy. The strategy addresses challenges identified in the three main commodity sectors, and these are agriculture, mining, and energy. The implementation of the commodity strategy is aimed at achieving sustainable industrialization, economic diversification, enhanced trade, and overall sustainable development on the African continent. Honorable ministers, Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has considerable reserves and varieties of energy resources, including fossil fuels and renewables. The continent accounts for over 8% of the world's crude oil reserves, estimated at over 127 billion barrels. This is, however, only half of Africa's share of world landmass, 20% of our population of 6%, suggesting the likelihood of further future discoveries from greater investment in exploration. Africa also accounts for about 7.5% of the total reserves of natural gas in the world, estimated at about 15 trillion cubic meters. Only about 11% of Africa's technically feasible hydropower potential, or over 300 gigawatts, is tapped, and its reserves of wood mass alone are estimated at over 7 billion tons. The potential for geothermal energy on the continent is estimated at over 15,000 megawatts, mostly concentrated in the Rift Valley countries. The potential for solar and wind energy in Africa are also large and available across all the regions of the continent. Energy commodities, especially fossil fuels, are a major source of revenue for the oil and gas exporting countries in Africa, such as Nigeria, Angola, and Algeria, accounting for between 50% to 80% of government revenues. However, despite producing almost 10 million barrels of crude oil per day, which represents about 10% of global crude oil production, Africa's crude oil consumption is the lowest in the world at less than 4%. Moreover, over 70% of the crude oil produced in Africa is exported out of the continent, and Africa has only 3.6% of global oil refining capacity, indicating that most of the oil resources on the continent are not only exploited at the domestic level, and consequently, opportunities for value additions are lost at that level as well. A majority of African countries are also net energy importers, highly exposed to the volatility of energy prices, thus jeopardizing their balance of payments positions. In addition, over $1.3 billion is spent annually to subsidize oil, energy. These are oil, gas, coal, and electricity to protect consumers in African countries. This imposes a huge fiscal burden on the economies of African countries and poses a huge risk to economic development. Many African countries also subsidize electricity, whereby the tariffs are usually not cost reflective. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, there are many factors contributing to the low levels of beneficiation from energy commodities in Africa. These include lack of financing, low levels of domestic demand, in turn, due to low levels of regional integration, as well as low levels of technical capacities. Despite these challenges, the huge reserves and variety of energy resources on the continent provide Africa with great opportunities to improve energy access, accelerate economic growth and industrialization, reduce poverty, and maximize earnings from the energy commodities through value addition and diversification. In addition, the huge energy resources on the continent also provide ample opportunities to promote regional trade and integration among the member states. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, the development of a robust energy system on the continent will require the development and implementation of coherent, consistent, and favorable policies and strategies in the energy sector. The African Union recognizes the need to set clear and achievable targets in the sector. For example, the proportion of energy commodities that should be processed within Africa and energy sector local content targets, as well as clear guidelines on trade of energy commodities at both the international and domestic levels. It is on the basis of this that the African Union embarked on another project to develop what is called the African Mineral and Energy Resources Classification and Management System, or AMREC. As a continental project, AMREC is expected to facilitate comprehensive resource management for Africa by focusing on the primary functions, resource policy and strategy formulation, as well as government resource management, industry business process management, capital allocation, capacity and capability building, and these are related to human resources and institutions, and keeping the social licenses to operate. The resource management value chain aligned with the AMREC has 5 aspects which cover the following. 1, the establishment of a legal framework that would convey and enforce rights to investors within a broad policy for development of publicly owned enterprises. 2, the institutional organization of the sector, and particularly the regulation and monitoring of operations in the public interest. 3, the design and collection of taxes and royalties together with promotion of local content. And 4, revenue management and distribution. And 5, the implementation of sustainable development policies. Classification of energy projects within the AMREC system will be aligned to the United Nations Framework Classification for Resources, or UNFC, while the resource management is aligned to the resource management value chain. Further, the AMREC system will be applicable, but not limited to mineral resources, both solid and fuel, petroleum resources, and renewable energy, including but not limited to geothermal energy, bioenergy, solar energy, and hydropower, wind energy and hydropower. Against this background, it is against this background that Africa needs the following: structured mineral energy markets which offer a platform enabling value chain factors to engage in specialization, and B, financial and capital markets to mobilize investments. C, institutionalization of laws and environment, and an environment that facilitates fair and competitive practices. And 4, operation of the African Trade Observatory, through which, among others, prices will be easily identified and agreed upon by buyers and sellers. Finally, let me stress that the African Union Commission remains fully committed to ensuring effective public-private partnerships with a view to leveraging the minerals energy sector, and in the process, facilitate the structural transformation of the continent. I thank all of you for your kind attention.